All right, everyone. We're at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. So we're going to get started with the uHIT Academy seminar with Matt Lisle. I think we've got Matt there. I'll just unmute him there so we can introduce him. Where's Matt? There he is.
I'm right here.
All right, there he is. Okay, it's like the Brady Bunch here. You're up there. So one big happy family, baseball, softball family. So really excited to have everybody here on the uHIT Academy seminar. And to have Coach Lisle, I mean, Matt has definitely been in touch with us for a long time, and it's been great to, kind of go our own paths, and then we intersect again. And we're so excited to have Matt for uHIT Academy seminar. He's really one of kind of the leading minds out there I'd seen in hitting, really open to all sorts of tools, and his hitting vault, is known really around the country and to some extent around the world. So we're really glad to have Matt here today. We're going to talk a little bit about the experience working with his players, working with uHIT last season from Fresno State. We're going to talk a little bit about some case studies, some examples that we saw from everyone from some sluggers to some people who are just getting on base more. We're also going to talk, get to some questions that many of you were kind enough to send in to us. Special questions that you had for Matt, and hopefully, Matt, we're going to put your knowledge to the test there, coaching knowledge to the test. But we had quite a broad range of questions that are pretty exciting, and we're curious to hear kind of what the latest is going on with hitting vault. So it's going to be an action-packed 45 minutes to an hour or so. We're going to see on screen a little bit kind of what's going on with uHIT these days, and how customized training works. And with that, Matt, I want to turn it over to you a little bit, and give you a little airtime and tell us kind of what's been going on in the hitting vault these days.
Thank you. Yes. So just got done coaching at Fresno State University, and just really focusing right now a lot on the hitting vault. And for us, we've got thousands of members now. We've been doing it for a little over 5 years and have grown and grown, and it's been an exciting program that we've got going, and continue to add to it. And so that's kind of what we're focusing on right now, is continuing to add content and value. As soon as I get off this call, I've got a 7 o'clock call for our members where we do a rapid fire video analysis, which is kind of fun. So we do every once a month, we do an hour-long video.
I don't know who that is. Okay, we're gonna undo that. There we go. All right. Hold on one sec there. Got you. Okay, you're good.
All right. And so so we're just having a lot of fun building that out and helping hitters, and that's been fun. So just kind of focusing on that a little bit right now, and that's kind of what's going on with me.
With uHIT. I think we'll dive right in. Let's talk about customized training that we did with the players at Fresno State. I think that's kind of on everybody's mind. Like, how does uHIT work? You're doing something on your phone, right? How does that translate to the field? I thought we'd talk a little bit about some of the players. Skylar Broussard, she was a big slugger on the team last year. We also had kind of a counterexample, Alexander Preston, someone who drew the most walks, right? And it was kind of this astonishing number of walks, and kind of came out of nowhere. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And some of the other players on the team who were kind of struggling a bit. We're not going to call them out on that, but going to kind of correlate that to what we saw in uHIT for them as well. So maybe just like to get everybody all on the same page, like, what is uHIT? I don't know what they're talking about. I'm going to share my screen real quickly, and we're going to look at a couple of short videos that will explain to you very quickly what uHIT is, how it works, and how you jump in and start working on pitch recognition on your phone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen right here, and you all are going to see kind of what happens when you come into uHIT the first time, right? You get this is just a screen recording here, so you can kind of see live. You get the choice of like how you're going to customize your training, right? What are your hitting vision goals, right? And so that's what we get to right from the beginning with uHIT. Are you a righty or a lefty, right? You choose that, right? Now, we're logged in on an account here that's of one of our He used to be a minor league player in the Pirates organization. He just became a major leaguer this year for the first time. Got his first major league hit this fall. So we were really excited to see that. So this is Jared Oliva's account. Now he's on, it says like AI3, right? He's on the 3rd round of his customized strike zone recognition training. So we'll talk more about what that means later, but he's gone through an assessment. He's gone through 1 round of AI training on strike recognition. This is for lefty pitchers. He's gone through 2 rounds, and now he's on his 3rd round, just about to start. He's 0-9 progress, hasn't gotten started. So when you open uHIT and you're doing customized training, that's what you see right when you come in. What is your customized training? What are your specific skills that you want to be working on? And so he's working on a left-handed pitcher. You see a righty up there now. It'll switch in a second. And he's working on fastballs that are 94 and sliders that are 87. He's got a goal he's got to hit in terms of this number of points to get to the next level. Because what we're doing is the more points you get, that means you're being more accurate calling balls and strikes, and you're being faster to the zone, right? So the more points, you get more points when you're faster and more accurate. And so that's how you continually improve your zone recognition skills in uHIT. So we're going to just see what's on screen. Now, every time if you've come in for the first time, you get a little tutorial, right? What's going on in the uHIT interface, right? You can see how many pitches you have left because you get a limited number of pitches in uHIT with an ad blocked kind of version in the beginning. You can go unlimited with Pro Player subscription, or what we're going to be calling uHIT Plus is what it's going to be called pretty soon. But you get to see how many pitches you have left. You also get to see how many points you are. So that's our goal, really. That's what Jared's going for. Now, this is a very important piece. This is a big innovation in uHIT in the last few months, is adding the 360 switch, the toggle on-off switch here. And that allows you to do like VR right here on your phone. So you're going to see I tap that in the right-hand corner, and I can move the screen around to get a sense of where I am in space there, where I am, what would be my actual view from the righty part of the box. Now, I froze it here right before the wind up and release because what Jared is working on right here is the middle and lower part of the zone, right? That's the green part of the zone here. So that's where he's going to be tapping when he thinks it's in that part of the strike zone. So I tap, I think that's in that part of the strike zone, and I get to see right there where that pitch landed. I see that I was correct. That was an in-zone swing. I get my points for it, and I get a speed bonus because I was fast to the zone, right? Now, that's something we were doing with the girls at Fresno State, is they need to be fast to the zone, especially the sluggers. So maybe, Matt, you want to talk a little bit about kind of some of the things that you've seen with, players like Skylar, even like with Miranda, I think, in terms of what you saw with their slugging as they were improving their speed to the zone using uHIT?
Yeah, so I would just say for us, the biggest thing was, and I'll kind of preface all of this by saying, at the college level, like we have a very limited amount of time with our hitters. And so, if for a lot of people, for people who own a facility or hitting guys, sometimes they get a lot of one-on-one time with their hitters. And so we don't get that. So we've got to be really, really efficient and effective and wise with our time. And so for me, one of the biggest, draws to uHIT was that, hey, the players can sit on the couch and while they're watching Netflix and while they're taking a study break, they can do it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And so for me, that was a big win. And for them, it was too. So it's like, hey, I don't have to go down to the cages tonight and take an extra 100 swings off the machine, but I can spend 10 minutes on doing this. And so I think for a lot of our hitters that really wanted to get better, those are the ones who kind of dug in and say, okay, I'll spend 10 minutes or 5 to 10 minutes a day jumping on the phone and playing with it or the iPad. And so, I would say for our hitters, we definitely saw a direct correlation just to the ones who actually, decided to really invest their time in doing that. And, Skylar was one of them for sure. And Miranda, who saw just their, for us, we measured plate discipline a lot. We measured, I would make all of our hitters after the games go watch the film, and they had to mark, pitches they swung at that were good decisions, pitches they swung at that were bad decisions, and vice versa. And they definitely would notice a correlation between, how much time they had spent with their uHIT and making good decisions at the plate. And at the college level, that's really a huge part of it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, no, I think that really helps to illustrate, for everyone watching, particularly, I know we were kind of switching over to softball here. This is tied just so everybody gets a kind of a feel for the way it looked for the Fresno State players, for Skylar and others. You actually see a Cal State Fullerton player up here right now who's on her second round of pitch recognition with right-handed pitchers, her third round of pitch recognition with left-handed pitchers, newly loaded up. And we're just showing that here just so you can see the difference really in terms of what softball looks like to baseball. While we do that, I do want to point out this particular part of when you come into uHIT one of your first times. You will get a question about whether you want to connect your device for a better experience. And that kind of goes to what Matt was talking about just now, about the players that decided to take like 5-10 minutes a day, even less. 2 to 3 innings is really about 5 minutes, I'd say. But the players that really invested time in this, 2 minutes a day, 3 minutes a day, they were the ones that really showed results on the field. So what we've done in uHIT is we've made that experience a little easier for players to get. And when you connect your device in this particular way, you can get that experience. How does that happen? It's because of notifications. The same kind of way that a coach helps you be accountable. We have an automated coach system built into uHIT. It's called Coach uHIT. And Coach uHIT helps you stay on top of your training, right? He tells you when you've hit some accolades. He tells you when it's time to get some training today, right? So that's a very important piece, I think, for you guys to recognize in terms of how to get a better experience out of uHIT and to really get that kind of impact that we've seen with players who invest the time into this. Again, you're seeing here the tutorial about what's going on in the softball game now. But that's really something that we'd like to highlight for you all to really get the best experience out of getting the kind of results that Matt saw with his players. Now we're doing pitch recognition here. Now what's going on is you'll see a screen text pop up. It'll say curveball. Okay, so I'm looking for a curveball right now from this release spot, right? And so when I see a curveball, I'm going to be tapping the screen as quickly as possible. So I tapped right there. You can see on the right part of the screen. And in a second, it'll show me, okay, I was correct, right? I got my 100 points. That was an in-zone swing. That was a pitch I was supposed to go for. And I got a speed bonus for that, right? Because I was fast in recognizing that that was a curveball. Now, you see here the pitch track, right? Now, this is something that, if any of you are familiar with some virtual reality products, they're starting to incorporate these kind of pitch tracks in there for you. So you can see, hey, what kind of pitch was that? What kind of trajectory was that I just identified as a curveball? Well, yeah, this was a curveball. It had that, characteristic hump and a little bit of a sideways movement to it, right? So this is what's going on in pitch recognition. This is something that we did, recognizing that one again as a curveball. This is something we did with the Fresno State players. Now, anybody looking at that pitch that we just saw, what did you think that one was, right? We'll look at that one again. We're looking curveball. Now notice I don't tap. There's no tap anywhere on the screen. Why? Because that was a drop, okay? Now you see with a drop, you've got that really characteristic movement to it. It goes up high, comes back down low, and I get bonus points. I don't get 100 points for an out of zone take. I get 150 points because it's so hard to teach impulse control to hitters, right? But that's what uHIT is doing here. And that's something we were doing with Skylar Broussard. That's something we were doing with Alex. I can directly speak to Skylar in particular. When Skylar first did this pitch recognition assessment, she didn't do too well. To put it bluntly, she was pretty bad. And but she started learning what are the differences between the rise ball movement, what are the differences between the curveball movement, and she went from being an accuracy of 22%, okay, 22%, to having an accuracy of 70%, and particularly having a huge boost in what she was doing on rise balls. In the assessment, she got none of the rise balls right, okay? When it came to doing those rounds of customized training, she pushed that all the way up to 69%, okay? So those are the kind of things that we see with uHIT, and those are the kind of things that, that's how it works on screen. And we can talk more about that, but I wanted to, hear a little bit more, Matt, in terms of what you saw with specific players. I think we got into some of the sluggers like Skylar, who had this boost in her pitch recognition, capability. Can you talk a little bit about what you saw with what you called the strange case of Alex Preston, who had these, incredible, it was just incredible at drawing walks?
Yeah, so I think, and I was trying to look it up earlier. I mean, I think that Alex Preston finished top 10 in the country in walks, and she had probably half the at-bats of anybody else in the top 10. There was a time in there, I think she had 20 at-bats, 17 walks, and 1 home run. And so, every time I kind of use her as an example every game with our players, just talking about how she really focused on plate discipline, and she was not going to chase pitches. She was going to swing good pitches, and it was just kind of incredible to watch her every game. And I think on paper, that's what I love about baseball and softball is, like, if you looked on her paper, her batting average was low, and if you were to draw up a lineup, she might get overlooked if you weren't really paying attention. But again, she led our team in walks. I want to say, and at one time she was number 1 or 2 in the country in walks early on in the season. And so, you were guaranteed she was going to get on base a couple times per game, just based on her plate discipline, and she was not going to chase. And if you did throw her pitch over the plate, she would swing at it, but she wasn't going to nibble on the corners. And I really think that had a huge amount to do with just how disciplined she was and how much she worked on it.
Yeah. No, and I think we've seen, as we've worked with more and more hitters, I mean, over 60,000 people have done uHIT over the last, 2 or 3 years at this point. And, we've seen a really changing thought process, changing, approach philosophy from, the get on base philosophy. But now there's also quite a bit of a shrink the strike zone, shrink the zone kind of focus that we're seeing out there. And, and that's something that, I think probably in Alex Preston's case, walking more, right? She's being able to, recognize over the entire part of the zone very well. She came in with her assessment as pretty high, around 72%, zone recognition. But as she worked on it more, she was pushing 80s, towards the end of the season. And, but, you do have players that I think, are looking to do damage in certain parts of the strike zone. And our hitter's eye zone, customization is really something that's really aimed at. Can you talk about kind of, these different kind of hitting philosophies you've seen in terms of, like, you want to be able to cover the whole zone versus, I'm looking for a pitch that fits my type of swing in a particular type of the zone, part of the zone?
Yeah, so all of our hitters, we spend a lot of time on plate discipline. So all of our hitters, they are able to recognize these are the zones that I do damage in. These are the zones I don't hit very well in. And so they know those two things. And so they know their plan of attack is to improve on the areas that they're not good in, and also improve on the areas they really are good at it. And we have a lot of rules and conversations around early in the count. And the term I always use for whatever reason is your 500 pitch, meaning that you're going to hit 500 if you get this pitch. And so I always ask our players, what's your 500 pitch? And they start from there, and they've got to recognize that. And so I'm going to hold them accountable to that pitch. So if they say this is their favorite pitch, they're going to hit 500 on this pitch, and it's an 0-0 count, and they get that pitch and they don't swing at it, there's something happened there. Like, they didn't see it. They were guessing. Something changed there. So, and on the other end of the spectrum, same thing. If they say, hey, I don't hit a low and outside pitch very well, and even if it's a strike, and they recognize that, they know that early in the count, and even with one strike, a lot of times they're not going to swing that pitch, and they'll let it be called a strike, and they are totally fine with that. And so, and again, in practice, we're trying to improve that. We're trying to make that better, but they recognize that and know, hey, until 2 strikes, I'm not going to be swinging at XYZ pitch. And so our hitters are we practice a lot. We talk about it a lot. They know their zones. They know what their strengths and weaknesses are there. And so we just spend a lot of time on that. And everybody's different. I mean, sometimes you talk to kids, and the data that we have at the college level is pretty good, and we can test them. We have a hit tracks. And what happens a lot of times, with younger hitters sometimes is they say, my favorite pitch is, low and in, or this, high and up. I like this pitch. And you know what? They don't hit that pitch very well. They just think they like that pitch. And so sometimes we have to have these conversations like, hey, you're telling me your favorite pitch is this, and I'm looking at the data, and it's like, you don't hit that pitch that well. And so, Skylar was someone you kind of mentioned that, she used to swing at the rise ball a lot, and she just like, oh, it just looks so good up there. And I mean, I think a lot of softball players say the same thing, but, she couldn't lay off of that. And so, we spent a lot of time on the rise ball, training it and working on that to a time where she was comfortable being able to say no to that rise ball. And so I think our hitters, they've got to know, what pitches do I chase too? We had someone on our team, a freshman who, like, down and away, she didn't hit that pitch well, but she chased it all the time. And it was like, man, how do we get you to stop swinging at that pitch? And so having those conversations a lot, training it. And I think that everybody's different. And I think, I think you just got to approach it like, hey, what we do is I print out, and anybody could Google it. You could print out a 3x3 square of the strike zone kind of, and we do a team activity every fall at some point where I have them color code it, and they're allowed to color 3 boxes red, and these are the 3 zones that I barrel up these 3 zones, and then 3 zones are like yellow, meaning that, like, hey, sometimes I barrel them, sometimes I don't, and then 3 cold zones. And if you just let them color whatever they want, like some players will like color in 6 boxes. I'm like, sorry, you don't. If you had 6 red boxes, you'd be All-American. So that's not the case. So I let them choose 3 red boxes, 3 blue boxes, and so we sit down. They color code it. They hold on to that, and then we talk as the season goes and the practice goes. Our hit tracks, we can look at it and see, hey, is that really what it is? And our pitchers really help us a lot too, because if you're on a college team and we scrimmage, we face the pitchers at least once or twice a week. Our pitchers know. So I try to sit with the pitchers as much as we can. Like, hey, when you're facing, Alex, or you're facing Miranda, what do you like to throw against her? And like, our pitchers know our hitters better than anybody. So we try to do that as much as we can too. And I try to talk to our pitching coach a lot. Like, hey, when Skylar gets in the box, what are you throwing her? And she'll say, well, I'm trying to throw this pitch because I know we get her out on that. And so we're trying to work together in those areas too. It's kind of just a broad stroke of all the things that we cover for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I while you were talking about the hot zones, I couldn't resist to bring up kind of, what kind of zone accuracy map, those 3x3, of the strike zone. And this is, we're actually looking at Skylar's here. This is after she had done some AI training. Now, you see pretty even distribution of what parts of the zone she's going on, or weaker on. But she's laying off a lot of the pitches that are out of the zone on this. Importantly, also, you see from when she did her assessment, you see her reaction time also dropped dramatically. I mean, 60 milliseconds is a lifetime in terms of the speed of a pitch. And when you're trying to do damage, and for her in particular, obviously, right middle of the plate is kind of her sweet spot. That's going to, make her that much more quick in terms of adjusting her swing, and then being able to, be there to do damage in that part of the zone that much sooner. I want to, introduce some questions from the audience, from people who wrote in ahead of time. We've been talking a lot about college age players here. I know you're also, working with a lot of major league players. But how do you teach pitch recognition, hitting approach for off speed or breaking pitches to youth players, really, to 11, 12 years old? What are some like specific drills, analogies? Like, how do you broach that topic with them, as they're getting ready to see these different types of pitches?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is just variability, and variability training. If I'm coaching at that age or coaching at any age, I would do some research on what we call block training versus random training. And basically random training, the entire idea is just a lot of variability and changing speeds and distances. So with those ages, I think a lot of coaches just get into the reps mode, and you do the same amount of reps at the same amount of pitch, distance and speeds. And so, I would say the more you can change speeds and variations, I've been very fortunate to be at colleges like Fresno State and the University of South Carolina and the University of Missouri and the University of Oregon, where we've had a lot of resources, and all those schools have pitching machines that are change pitches. So, there's different versions of it. We had what's called the eHack, and now it's called the iHack with Sports Attack. And so those are pitching machines that we can program, and we can program. So we, at the college level, we would say, hey, today's going to be rise balls and drop balls. And I don't want you to swing the rise ball. I do want you to swing the drop ball. And we program the machine. I would say at the youth levels, younger levels, you can still do the same thing depending on your personnel. Like, do you have the coach that can throw, and can they switch? I coached high school baseball for a long time, and I carved up our hitters all the time, throwing pitches from BP and throwing changeups and changing arm speeds. And so to me, I would do a lot of what we call BP scrimmages, where I would throw BP. We would scrimmage like a normal game, but I can control everything. And so, I would throw a lot of off-speed pitches and from a short distance. And so for me, the best way to train it, in my opinion, is just a lot of variability from speed, distance, arms, arm slots, and all the different things. And the more those young hitters see variations of speeds, that's the best way to train curveballs and changeups and rise balls.
Now, in the case where, maybe difficult to get outside and play, winter's here in a good part of the country pretty soon. How do you, and, you don't have a machine, a pitching machine, or, maybe your coach isn't really able to, do those really cover up the hitters like that. What are some other options really for, for hitters to see those different types of pitches, maybe virtually or otherwise?
Yeah. So again, like I would say the thing that we did this year with uHIT, and it really helped for us, was like in the college level, we've got these breaks. We got the Christmas break or Christmas breaks, like sometimes 3-4 weeks long, and we can't control what they do during that time. But I can go log into my uHIT and see who's been doing the work and who's been, doing it. So we can, that's definitely one thing that helped us a lot. I'm a big fan of video. I think that there's probably a lot of arguments on how valid and how helpful it is. But again, if I have a kid who really loves the game, and I live in a area that I can't get outside in the winter and hit a lot, I would be watching some video and just to be able to pick up, release points and spin, and just be able to recognize it, whether or not it's actually, helping with timing or pitch recognition. But I do believe that if I can watch video of pitchers and just be able to see some things, I do think that there's benefits to that. And so those would probably be the biggest things that I would try to do. And I think parents can get in your backyard or in the front yard. I think, to me, I know that there's some different tools out there with wiffle balls. I mean, like probably everybody listening on this call, I mean, I'm the oldest of 7 kids, and we play wiffle ball in the backyard for 2-3 hours a day, every single day of the week. So if you've ever played wiffle ball before, I'll tell you, you can do some crazy stuff with wiffle balls, from speed and curveballs and things like that. So, for me, it's a pretty simple tool. I'm all about using wiffle ball. And I know there's different kind of versions of ball. I know there's I forget what the ball is called. There's a crazy ball that moves all over the place. And so to me, I think those are great ways to be in the backyard and to do some different things and to just to be able to change it up a little bit.
Yeah. No, that's great. And, of course, we appreciate you, pointing out uHIT as a way of, seeing, I think sometimes we talk about uHIT like, it's like watching video, but it is you interact with it just the same way when you're out in the backyard, with the wiffle ball. You got to track exactly where the ball is going, because, I mean, it's going to be moving all over the place. and, and really fine tune those skills of, seeing horizontal movement, seeing vertical movement. Those are particularly kind of the things that, that we specialize in with uHIT's pitch recognition. I want to, address some of the questions that, some coaches have posed here in the chat. Donnie brings up any recommended drills for developing the connection phase of the swing. I guess integrating that to how they're recognizing, let's say in a virtual setting like uHIT, or if they are, watching video. How do you develop that kind of connection phase of the swing a little bit better? Any recommended drills there?
Yeah, and Donnie, I was reading this question in the chat earlier. It would probably be helpful for me if you could define a little bit what your definition of that is. I guess a little bit. I know it sounds like that's a simple thing, but I just know that everybody's kind of definitions of things like connection are different. So I think it would be super helpful if it says recommended drills for developing connection phase, and then can you explain knob? I would say that would be super helpful. I'm not entirely clear on what you're asking. If that's, then I apologize for that.
I thought you might know. All right, we can go onto another question here. Maybe switching topics more to accountability. You talked about how during winter break, being able to see, when you're not there with your players regularly, kind of teaching accountability. I mean, what are some ways that not necessarily focusing on uHIT and its coach tracking dashboard, which I think is what you're referring to, but really other ways, in addition to teach accountability for doing training outside of the defined practice times?
Yeah, I mean, I think that coaches have to create an environment that kids want to practice. Like I know that if I'm coaching a travel ball team or a high school team, you're going to have kids who just, they're going to drag their feet to practice, and they're going to say, I have to go to practice today. That's just the nature of life. My kids do it. My kid did it today to soccer, dragging him to soccer. So I would say that the more we can create this environment of hey, this is fun and we want to do this, and you get them excited about it, it's a lot easier for the accountability piece to say, hey, did you work on this week, or did you do that? And finding fun ways to check in on them. My players, I even had several players today FaceTime me, and one of them was hitting and talking, and so they just know that I'm going to answer the phone if I FaceTime. And if I send, even not, I'm not coaching at Fresno State for 2 weeks, but if I put a FaceTime call to voicemail, I'll get a text message 2 seconds later like, Coach, you're the worst. And so they know that they know that I'm accessible, and they know that if they need help, that I'll be there for them. And I think, and vice versa, that I could call them and say, hey, have you been doing this? I think accountability to me, when it comes to all that stuff, is just about relationship and creating an environment that the athletes want to, do whatever you're asking them to do. So I think a lot of times I get asked from coaches like, hey, I created this off-season program, but none of my kids are doing it. And I'm like, well, are all of your players just not they don't really love the sport? They don't like it? Is what is the real reason why that is? And so for me, I would try to find fun ways for accountability. We do a lot of competition type things, and say, hey, hey everybody, we're gonna, this week we've got a blast motion sensor, right? Or honestly, uHIT. We did it so the way that we did accountability with uHIT is that every Monday, our graduate assistant would print out all the uHIT stats from the week before, like how many reps you got, how much time you put on, and they posted it on the board every Monday. So when you got to the barn, our hitting barn, and if you didn't open uHIT and somebody else spent a couple hours on it, it was there for the whole 25 players to see, and the coaching staff and everybody else. So, for us, we had leaderboards and competitions, and we celebrated the people who did a good job or who put time in. And I think for us, I would say the same thing with coaches. Like, kids are competitive and they want love. So anytime, I know I could find text messages right now in our group text that would say things like, Alex Preston, great job with uHIT this week. You did the best of anybody. And even at the college level, kids who are 20 years old, like, they recognize it. Coach recognized me, gave me a lot of love on the whole group thread, and said, like, great job to me. And I think the same thing can go for no matter what age it is. If we got everybody here's on the Zoom call, and I tell everybody, hey, I want you to spend 5 minutes a day doing uHIT. All right, let's get back on the Zoom call next Monday. And I say, hey, Donnie, great job. You spent the most time this week. That was really awesome. You did a really good job. And Donnie's going to feel good about that. Everyone else is going to go, oh man, that was I wish that I had done. I want to get that love. And so, I think there's just different ways you can create accountability, competitiveness, leaderboards. Giving praise to the right people, and sometimes at the older level, I call out. I don't call out people a lot, but I might say, hey, Susie. Susie and Blaine, you guys didn't put any effort into this week, and in the group chat, every once in a while I'll let everybody know these people did a really good job, and these people didn't put their time in, and I don't do that a lot, but every once in a while it keeps them on their toes to let them know that, hey, I'm watching the people who aren't doing the work either.
Yeah, no, and I think on that same thread of accountability, the leaderboards, when you're in a team environment, really I'll go back to kind of what we what I had up on the screen earlier about the kind of the automated coach. Obviously, it's not as personalized as hey, great job here, but or let's jump on FaceTime. But our automated coach, Coach uHIT, that's in there, really helps you stay on track with when it's just you and the coach, that kind of, person-to-person connection. And it'll tell you, you're doing great. You've passed this challenge. You're getting points, right? Hey, this is your customized training that's ready here for you. And, those are the kind of tools that are built into uHIT to make it easy for you as a coach to bring this to your players, easy for you as a parent to bring it to your kids. And easier for you as a player to really stay on top of your training, but, in an environment that's, like being on the couch, maybe watching some Netflix, but, I'm going to get in a few targeted reps, really train some synapses on this level here, because that's really where uHIT came from. I don't know if any of you have come across a book called The Performance Cortex, but that's about a company named DeServo. That's the company that makes uHIT. And it's all about, we've learned how to measure the brain of hitters as they're doing really well and as they're doing really poorly. And what uHIT is doing is it's getting players from wherever they are to that much better. And all these different techniques of engagement, whether it's the coach, Coach uHIT on uHIT, or whether it's these leaderboards, these are the ways that are going to help your players reach that kind of next level of achievement. I will do a little more show and tell with uHIT, and then we're going to turn to a couple more questions while we do have Matt here before he's got to jump off. But I do want to point out to you all really kind of where the kind of the layout of uHIT is to be able to dive in on your own, to be able to really customize your training. Even we've talked about how the training is automatically customized based off of your assessment. But I do want to, give you guys a little bit of orientation in terms of what's on the main menu, kind of what all information is there to kind of help keep you going through and working on the various skills that you have. So we're going to down here in the bottom here where you can customize the games. When you go into uHIT, you'll have this kind of main menu up in front of you, kind of what your next challenge is, what you should be working on. We can talk a little bit more about this, how to see your stats and things like that in a second. But we're going to jump into where it says customized games here. And that's really an area where you can zoom in on, you want to go into your customized training, no problem. Or let's say, I want to just work on zone enhancement. I want to work on a particular part of the strike zone. Or I want to go into reaction time training to really work on speeding up my recognition of balls that are in the zone. Or let's say I just need to get an assessment, right? that's really the foundation of where my customized training begins. But let's say I'm just ready for a reassessment right now. You can do that all in that kind of customized games menu in uHIT. Now, you can jump in here to the customized training, and since we're here on Jared's account, there are a few challenges he's got in front of him there. He's got his second round, strike zone recognition, and his third round we're going to see him jump into there in a second. And that would launch us back to kind of what we saw a little bit earlier, working on that particular part of the strike zone, kind of middle and lower part of the strike zone. So that's what's going to be selected here in a second. And you've got that inning to go through, and every inning gets a little bit harder for you, where the speeds will get a little faster and you'll have to react just a little bit faster to the upcoming pitches. But this is kind of what you guys have seen before, the ability to navigate around your space and, be able to, that was a take, I didn't tap on that, and be able to try to recognize and call pitches in different parts of the zone. Now, that was a situation, I just want to point that out, where you get instant feedback when, let's say, you go for a pitch, right? I tapped, right? That ball is way out of the zone, though, right? And not only do I get deducted points for that, but I also get a little bit of an impulse penalty because I was going a little bit quick, right? So this is kind of that kind of, not accountability, but kind of impulse control that, we really are teaching with uHIT. This ability to lay off bad pitches, but then pull the trigger early on pitches that are in the zone. Okay, that one in particular, a little bit late, but I was correct on calling that one. So I do want to open it up to some more of the questions that we have had that are related to how customized training does work. Nancy wrote into us. Maybe Matt, you could explain this a bit. Really, how does training like this that you do on a phone translate to something you're doing in a cage or when you're facing a pitcher, in a game? I mean, can you talk a little bit to that?
Yeah, I would just say that a lot of our players, and especially at first, they were kind of like, this is a little bit weird, and it took a little getting used to. But as they got used to it more and more, and they started seeing high level pitching in the pitching machine and our pitchers, they started really, the feedback from the players was like, hey, I think it's definitely helping, especially from a reaction time standpoint, and be able to making decisions fast. And so for me, I honestly, I can't speak to a lot of it myself because I'm terrible at it. Anything low in the zone, I'm good at. Anything high, I'm not very good. But when I would always talk to our players. Like I would never purchase something and just say have at it and let them go. So I always sat and talked with them. And hey, what do you guys think about this? And a lot of the feedback at the beginning was like, hey, that was a little weird. I don't really like this, or I'm getting used to it, or if they weren't, especially if they weren't good at it. Like it was like, and I'm sure, I've got 5 kids, and when my kids aren't very good at something, even right away, it's kind of like, I don't like it. And so for us, I had a lot of conversations like, well, why, what don't you like about it? Well, it's just hard. And so the more we got to is like, so I would just speak to it in the sense that the feedback that I got from players over time was that it felt like it had this correlation between when we were doing the machine work and when we were doing live work. When they would go to do that, they felt like they went hand in hand together. Yeah.
No, that's really helpful, I think, to hear, because it's really, you think like, hey, there's no pitcher even on the mound there. How is seeing that trajectory and being able to have to tap on the screen? How is that helping me here? But to I think that initial hump too that you're talking about, that some of the players have. Hey, it's weird. I'm doing this on my phone. This isn't, exactly what it's like to be up on the field, up at the plate. I think that's an important point to get to because no, it's using your phone is not exactly like it. But the whole point really of uHIT is to simulate to some level kind of what your brain experiences as you are watching a pitch come towards you, and then having to react to that, right? So that's, I think, a really important point to get across to players early on, especially if they're not good at it. We've had so many players who say exactly what Matt pointed out of like, oh, it's hard. I don't know how to do this, right? And then they just put it down and they're done. But I got news for you. Hitting is hard. So, we're not trying to really pull any punches here. We do try to adapt it so it becomes a little easier. But that's really where the assessment starts. And we know a lot of you did do an assessment ahead of this seminar. And I hope that helps you get a sense of where it leads to by seeing it here on screen. I'll pull up one more question here, and then we're going to drop some resources into the chat window, and then wrap up since we are coming up on an hour pretty soon. We have a question here from Susie. Is a unit more block training or variable training? I don't know, Matt. Maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah, I would say. Did you guys lose me on video?
We did.
Oh, weird. I don't know what happened there, but
I'll stop it and start it again. See if we get you back. Oh, we see your face now. Let's see.
So strange. I apologize. I don't know what's going on with my camera. I can see myself, but I can see like my square is blank. So I apologize, but so I would say it's variable. That's definitely variable training because every time they do uHIT, it's so different. I think there was some confusion with our players at first, like on how it progresses, but it progressed and changed so much. So you're not doing the same thing. To me, the definition of block training would be taking 100 swings off the tee that are similar, or front toss, or the machine, and there's no like speed changes. There's nothing. So the best example that I ever got when it came to block training versus variable training was the example of shooting free throws. So, someone could get really good at shooting free throws. They shoot 100 free throws, and over time they get really good at shooting free throws, and they never practice shooting anywhere else, and they don't shoot very well anywhere else. But the hitters who shoot 100 shots all over the court versus just 100 shots at the free throw line, over time those basketball players were better shooters. And so for me, when it comes to variable versus block training, a good way to describe it was that, and that every time you take a rep, it's different.
Yeah. I think it's I've never really heard that terminology of a block versus variable, and used as in this context necessarily. But I think that is kind of one of the things that we're going for, that variable training aspect with uHIT, particularly that you're not always going to see the pitch in that part of the zone that you love. So you got to learn how to lay off of it, right? And you got to get that instant feedback, really, of, hey, that's not your pitch, or hey, you're a little bit late on that part of that pitch in that part of the zone that you want to be quicker on and doing some real damage on. So, I would definitely kind of agree with you in terms of the difference block to variable. There is some aspect, I would say, though, to consistency that is within some of the customized training that uHIT does, where it's like, what, I just want to look at fastballs outer part of the plate. You can do that with the pro player subscription in uHIT. I just want to look at rise balls in that upper part of the zone, strike zone, and then against the ball zone right above it. I can do that again with the pro player subscription. And I put in the chat here 2 links for participants here to take advantage of. If you're softball, you can go with the one that says uHIT softball. If you're baseball, you can go with the one that says uHIT baseball. And those are the AI training order forms. And so that'll take you to a secure form to enter some info. And you would be getting that customized ability to say, I want to work on this outer part of the zone, rise balls. I want to work on this inner part of the zone, sliders, let's say baseball. But you would also be getting that assessment up front and the customized training coming right to your phone on a regular basis. And so just to give you a sense of some of the economics here, you do right-handed pitcher, you do left-handed pitcher, and you're doing each of those in pitch recognition and strike recognition. So generally, pro player is $8 a month for each one of those 4. Instead of 32, we just round it down a little bit, 28, 29 bucks a month. And so that order form is there for you. But now in this session, we actually provide a little bit of a discount, actually a steep discount. So it can actually come out to around $16 a month instead of the full 28 if you put that order in during this session right now. So I'm going to turn to a question that came up in the chat here as we're kind of winding down the last few minutes here. What ages of players was uHIT designed for? Is it effective for younger players, 11 to 12U? Great question. The short, I guess I'll take a first stab at that. Originally, uHIT was designed for, wasn't really designed particularly for major league players, but it was first used by major league and minor league players. uHIT is a product developed by a company called Servo, and the first players that were analyzed with what became uHIT were college players at a university where the research happened, and then over time, major league teams started recognizing that, hey, this company is measuring how the brain of hitters works, and we want to bring that into our organization to help train our hitters. So originally, it was designed for minor league hitters, and then pretty soon college players started using it. And then, but the brain is the brain, right? And especially at the age of like 11 to 12U, the brain is developing so fast. And so what we really have seen, I'd say on these individual bases as we've worked with more and more 11, 12, 13, 14U players, is that they're making tremendous strides, even more so than some of our professional players, because their brains are just so much more malleable at that age, right? They can pick up so much stuff. Sometimes they pick up things you don't want them to pick up, right? But in this case, when they're using uHIT, especially on this 2 to 3 innings a day kind of basis, they're picking up so much information about what does that curveball look like, what part of the zone is that going in, and they just like make those synapse connections so that they know, hey, I'm tapping, I'm going on that pitch, or no, I'm holding off, I'm exhibiting some impulse control here. And so that's a really important aspect, I think, to consider with the younger players, is that this is really a critical skill for younger players to learn, and it's going to pay off tremendous dividends. Think of it like learning a language, right? You're so much more comfortable with a second language or even your primary language when you learn it from the beginning versus when you try to learn it later in life, or playing an instrument, right? If you started piano lessons when you were 5 years old, it's a lot easier than when you're 50, right? So that's really, I think, the big point with uHIT. We had one more question in the chat. I'll address that, and then I'll ask Matt for some closing comments. Is there a team membership? As a coach, can I send by and send to my team? Yes, we can do team membership. So I'd encourage you to reach out to Joe Peterson. He's the one who sent you the link for how to access tonight's Zoom seminar. And we can set up a Zoom call just like this with you to talk through that. We do have some kind of flexible arrangements. So it's either like you can do a team version of, assessments and customized training, depending on how many players you're doing. Or sometimes, coaches like just, introducing the players to it and giving the parents the option to kind of upgrade on their own. So those are all options out there for you. So again, those links are in the, for the AI training order form. Those links are in the chat. Make sure for baseball, you do the baseball one. For softball, it says uHIT softball. So Matt, I want to turn it over to you for any closing comments before we wrap up this uHIT Academy seminar.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on, and I appreciate everybody listening. I would just say the last thing, Susie, you were asking about the block training. I would say there is definitely a place for block training. We don't do variable training at all times. Like I think when we're first learning something and we're first getting good at something, we do a lot of block training. But as we progress, it becomes more variable training. And so I just want to be clear that we definitely do a lot of block training still, regardless. But and I would just say, I would tell you guys, I've been coaching for 20 years. I've coached Division I. I've coached Major League Baseball. I've done all the levels. And I would tell you that vision training, plate discipline is one of the most overlooked, underestimated, however you want to frame it, things. And that some of the teams that I have coached that have had a ton of success is because we really focus a lot on that. And I think it's an area that we get a big advantage over other teams that don't make it a priority. And so regardless whether or not you use uHIT or anything else, I would highly encourage you to really spend some time in that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can definitely second that. We see a huge difference between, players that exhibit those kind of skills and don't. Even kind of a more recent note, watching the World Series, a couple of the players that we worked with about 5 years ago, we see them, being very successful in the World Series, and the ones that we didn't see them in the World Series. And so, it's that skill. And I'm talking about hitters that were serious power hitters as prospects, and they're kind of nowhere to be found now. But the guys who were maybe not crazy power hitters, but they were able to make consistent contact, and then they could develop power later on. In that case, I'm specifically talking about Justin Turner. It was someone we saw. That is a skill that, cannot be emphasized enough. So I totally second that, Matt. And, hopefully we can bring that to your team. Again, you've got the order form link in the chat, and you can reach out to Joe Peterson. That's joe.peterson@deservo.com for any details to do a team membership or something like that. And then anytime you do get an 833 number call, that is us reaching out to you and making sure everything's okay with your account. It is not a Russian hacker. It is uHIT. So anyway, with that, we'll wrap up. Matt, thank you so much for spending some great time with us and, and talking baseball, talking hitting. And thank you, everybody. Stay tuned for another uHIT Academy seminar that will be in about 2 weeks, November 15th. We'll be speaking specifically on the topic of parent-player kind of dynamics and how to work with your son, daughter, individually, as a that kind of parent-player coaching relationship. So keep an eye out for that. Sign up in your email. Again, thank you, everybody, for joining. And stay tuned. You will have in your email a way to get this video in the future and pick up any of the deals. Again, that order form, you will get $16 a month instead of $28 for customized training if you fill it out during this call right now. So again, thank you, everybody from uHIT, and have a good evening.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.